Good afternoon. Like always, man, I'll start with a quick review. Obviously, a disappointing outcome to our Sunday night game against the Chargers. Again, like I said after the game, I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate those guys on a quality effort and performance, particularly Phillip Rivers. They're a championship caliber group, man. We knew that going in, and he's a championship caliber competitor. And it was revealed, but in analysis of the game, we tip our caps to them, but we look at the things that we did or could have done and should have done differently and better, and there were obviously many of those type of things and opportunities to learn. We had letdowns in all three phases, and when you lose a game in that manner, usually it's a combination of letdowns in all three phases, particularly in the second half. And I'll paint with a broad brush. Obviously, there's some other specific things, but on offense, I thought killing two drives with penalties to start the second half. Second down holding penalties are difficult to overcome. The first possession, we had a 25-yard run on second down. It was brought back by a penalty, made that difficult to overcome, and we didn't. The subsequent drive, we hit a screen on second down. That play was called back due to penalty. You just can't have those type penalties on second down, man. It puts you behind the chains, and then there's not enough subsequent downs to win those circumstances. I thought that, that hurt our efforts and hurt our fluidity in terms of coming out of the locker room. On special teams, we had some positive plays. We blocked a punt, but we also had the punt return. And in a game like that, when both offenses were capable of possessing the ball and limiting the number of possessions, particularly over the second half of the game, you can't have quick strikes. And that punt return was a quick strike that really changed the climate in the game. Obviously, when people score in the special teams phase of the game, man, their chances of winning go way up in any stadium, and that was the case. And then on the defensive side, man, we had difficult times getting the subsequent stops or the needed stops, particularly as the game wore on. Phillip Rivers, you got to acknowledge, is a sharp guy with a lot of autonomy at the line of scrimmage. As the game wore on, I think he really got comfortable with what he was looking at and was able to do some things and get them in some situations to move the chains on possession downs. As the game wore on, I think he got a sense of some of the things that we were doing in some of our sub packages. Playing without Morgan Burnett and Cam Sutton really kind of limited us in some of those things. And I think as the game went on, he pushed 13 inside and took advantage of some of those opportunities. Such is life. Collectively, we didn't do enough to win the game. There were plenty of opportunities for sure. But again, letdowns in all three phases created it. On the injury front, we got a number of injury things to discuss. James Conner's injury is probably a little bit more significant than we initially thought. He's got an ankle sprain, not a contusion, so he'll be out this week. We got a few personnel-like moves associated with that. Justin Hunter is down with his shoulder. He's been placed on IR. We've activated Trey Edmonds from our practice squad to provide some running back depth for us in the short term. Cam Kennedy went down in the game with the knee. He was able to return. It's probably going to slow his preparation here at the early stages of the week, but we're hopeful that he'll be a participant. Chicolo sustained an ankle in the game, may limit his preparation during the course of the week, and we'll see where that leads us. Marcus Gilbert still working his way back from injury, hadn't checked in on his status. I think he's downstairs right now working. We'll see where his participation is and where that participation might lead us. He's got to be getting closer. A couple other guys had nicks and so forth in the game. Rosie Nix had a shoulder. I don't think that's going to stop him from being available to us. Ryan Switzer's in the protocol. Part of getting out of the protocol is physical labor, so he'll be given an opportunity to do some of those things. Optimistic about his inclusion, but we'll let that process run its course. Looking at the Oakland Raiders, got a lot of respect for those guys, their coaching staff. Know quite a few of their guys personally. Obviously, I work for John Gruden and know the top-notch strategist that he is. I'm sure that he spent a lot of time analyzing us, not only this week and in preparation for the game, but just largely. Our defensive schemes are kind of prevalent throughout ball. He's a guy that studies and digests football. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of concept things from them, a cumulative body of work, if you will, from that study. So we're going to be challenging some schematic ways that way. Rich Bisaccia, their special teams coordinator, I worked with him a number of years, man, top quality special teams guy, calculated risk taker, a guy that's capable of dialing things up, man. We got to respect that. And then on the defensive side, their coordinator came over from the Bengals. So we've been in some battles with those guys. He's got a mode of operation in terms of how to combat us schematically. He's got knowledge of our offensive people and how we play, particularly situationally. So, there's some things from that standpoint to combat. But before we get into kind of all of that and open it up to questions, I'll outline a few things regarding their personnel. I'll start with Derek Carr. I think you start with Derek Carr. They were in the game last week and in the game in a big way because of him. I think he's a catalyst for a lot of positive things for them. I know there's not a lot of positivity when you won the number of games that they've won, but being around Derek and getting to know him at the Pro Bowl, I've been really impressed by him. I think his play and his stats reflect his capabilities. His quarterback rating is 95 or better. He's completing roughly 70% of his passes. Man, he's the young guy in the Pro Bowl, so we got a pecking order. We knew that he would be in the game kind of at the end of the game. I had good fluid interaction with him all week and challenged him to kind of deliver victory for us. We knew that in games like that, the last couple of possessions would be significant. It was fun to watch him over the course of the week kind of rally the guys and gain the necessary relationships with the guys that would be in the game with him in the waning moments, and he delivered that. And so I had that experience with him. We talked openly about it. I like his competitive spirit. He's a good communicator. He's a gym rat, an X's and O's type of a guy. He's going to challenge us, and in the ways that Phillip Rivers challenged us, particularly as the game wore on. We better be thoughtful about mixing our looks up to keep him from catching up with us and attacking us in some of the schematic ways that we were attacked last week. He's got Jordy Nelson back. Jordy Nelson is a big-time competitor and has done it at a high level for a long time. He may have Martavis back. We don't know that. Cook, his tight end, is having a career year, is a vertical threat, is a real problem down the field from a matchup standpoint. Oftentimes too athletic for linebackers, too big for defensive backs. We've been familiar with him from his time in Tennessee, of course. And Lee Smith, can't say enough about him, veteran tight end, run blocker, kind of provides the end-of-the-line component of play for them, big-time competitor. They're getting quality contributions from their backs, particularly in the passing game. Richard, I think, is their leading receiver. John's utilizing him in a big way, getting him the ball outside the backfield. On the defensive side of the ball, it's about familiarizing ourselves with some of this young talent, particularly up front. Sub-package, Rushman, and so forth. Arden Key is an edge guy, young, talented edge guy. I was at his pro day a year ago. Hurst inside leads him in sacks. He's a one-gap interior rusher. Man, has done a heck of a job. I think he's got 4 sacks, a young, talented guy. To Sam Houston, we looked at in the draft. He's another guy in a one-on-one situation. It's very difficult to block. They got some guys up front from a rush standpoint that really create some mismatches and some issues. But when I talk about them schematically, that's not surprising. They're building their program probably on the defensive side of the ball in a similar way that you had to be prepared to block Dunlap and Johnson and Geno Atkins individually when you're playing Cincy. I see some of that carryover. Obviously, they got some veteran guys in that group that come from that experience. Reggie Nelson being one, Frosty Rucker being another, that adds a veteran component to play and stability, if you will. They're playing solid ball. Their corner tandem is long and talented. Conley, obviously, is a first-round pick, and Worley is a long bump corner out of West Virginia. They've acquired those two guys in tandem are rock solid. They're good at disrupting the normal flow of offense. They're competitive and combative. They get on the line of scrimmage. We better do a good job of working to win those battles and getting open versus those guys, and expect those guys to to work and get on the line of scrimmage to disrupt the normal flow of our offense to highlight some of the rush skills of the guys that I mentioned. So I'll open it up for questions.
Mike, with James being out, is it fair to expect y'all to run a by-committee approach out the backfield?
That is our intentions as we sit here, but we have a preparation week in front of us, and sometimes division of labor is revealed to you through that work. We got a great deal of confidence in Ridley. We got a great deal of confidence in Jalen, particularly of late with Jalen. He's a guy that's been on the rise in recent weeks. We've talked about it in here. And Trey's a guy that's played some pro football. We were excited about getting him on our practice squad when we acquired him, and so we'll put him in uniform and give him an opportunity to be a contributor as well.
Is it a high ankle sprain for James, or is it?
I don't know if you describe it as a high ankle sprain. It is an ankle sprain, much more than the contusion initially it was thought to be.
Why is Jalen on the rise?
You know, I just think sometimes the journey itself provides opportunity, and that opportunity provides, times for guys to show and prove, and he's done that. And so he's getting increasing opportunities because of it. That was ongoing in recent weeks, even prior to James's injury. So obviously sometimes injury is a component of it, and it is now moving forward, but it wasn't in recent weeks. I think his play has been a component of it. So from that standpoint, there's some excitement.
Mike, what have you seen from Trey in practice, and how have you seen him?
I've seen a good skill set. I've seen a willing participant. I've seen a guy that's shown a skill set that's maybe geared towards some special teams, and that's potentially not a really common thing at the running back position. I know he earned his stripes in New Orleans in that capacity. So forget what he's able to provide us as a runner. This is a guy that's going to be in uniform that has a resume that's centered around some special teams contributions, and so he'll be given an opportunity there first and foremost. But I haven't been displeased with what I've seen from him as a runner.
Is it important to have a veteran like Ridley available to?
There's no question, but we were thoughtful in Ridley's inclusion in our group. To have a veteran backup like that, a guy that's been in some circumstances, been in playoff football, et cetera, he'll get an opportunity to show and prove.
Mike, did you get the defensive matchups you wanted against Rivers?
In some instances I didn't, but that's life. That's the chess match that is NFL, particularly at this portion of the journey. Sometimes you have guys available, sometimes you don't. It was no secret we were without Morgan Burnett and Cam Sutton, two of our core kind of interior sub-package defenders. So, there were going to be some smoke and mirror play, if you will. And it was. But when you're playing a guy like Phillip Rivers who has big-time autonomy at the line of scrimmage, sometimes you run out of smoke.
How did that affect linebackers getting matched up with Keenan Allen at times?
Like I mentioned, we ran out of smoke.
Mike, aside from the sub-officiating and the penalties by the team, did the offense make enough adjustments in the second half to be successful?
I wasn't concerned with anything schematically or things that needed to be done from an adjustment standpoint, to be quite honest with you. It was about our execution or maybe lack thereof. There wasn't a major schematic adjustment. I thought we were capable of moving the ball fluidly. I thought we did, except when we hurt our own causes due to penalties and so forth.
No one else? Is Trey a factor in punt return as well?
We'll see. We got some work ahead of us this week, particularly with the division of labor and our use of running backs and so forth.
With Hunter going down, could this be a possibility that Eli Rogers, if he's ready, gets?
A possibility. He tweet anything? No. But it's also an opportunity for things to boomerang back around for James Washington. And I'm kind of excited about that, to be quite honest with you. Such is life in this game at this level. Sometimes you get knocked down. You got to get in the lab and work. And oftentimes that's done in obscurity, if you will. And you wait for your opportunity to get back on and to ride again and to show what you're capable of. Not a lot of time on the shelf for James. And so it's going to be exciting to watch him get back on this week and take advantage of someone else's misfortune and be a positive contributor to our efforts. Excited about the potential inclusion of him again as well.
You talked last week about generating turnovers. How much can that actively be done, and how much of that is just sort of patience, and eventually they'll show?
Man, we're in the process of working on it. It's done in a lot of ways. A lot of it is done by creating environments, putting the quarterback under duress, and so forth. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why I've been disappointed in the lack of turnovers, because the quarterback largely has been under duress in the games that we've played. We've gotten after the quarterback. Our sack total is kind of a reflection of that. We got to be more opportunistic, and we got to preach it. We got to work it. The guys got to deliver. We're definitely not going to sit on our hands and wait patiently for it to occur. We're going to actively seek it, which is what we're doing.
When you look at some of the guys you've had who've been the best at getting the ball hawks, what are the things what are the characteristics they share?
You mentioned it. They're ball hawks.
A couple of years ago, we talked pretty explicitly about trying to get down to 2 outside linebackers you run the vast majority of the time. There's a little more rotation this year. We saw 4 last week. Why is that?
Because they're capable. You know, we're going to play guys that prove to be varsity capable. Anthony Chickalo, this is not his first rodeo with us. This guy's played a lot of football with us, started some games when others have missed and so forth. The guys that are capable components for us are going to play. It's as simple as that.
Like the Fort in for Bostic a lot of the time, was that some of the smoke you were talking about you needed to because of the people available?
You know, Fort has played some sub-package ball for us, so, you know, that's been a component of play. The amount that Fort played probably had to do with the lack of Morgan Burnett and Cam Sutton, and less about he and Bostic.
Mike, the challenges of going to the West Coast seem to be a franchise problem for the Steelers over the years. The team has a losing record on the West Coast. What kind of challenges are there that make things difficult in that situation?
You know, I'm sure there are some, not any that I'm willing to acknowledge, or at least acknowledge from a logistical standpoint. We got a game to play. We're going to go play. They play East Coast games. It's life in our league, you know. Historically, some of the things that you mentioned, you know, we can spend a lot of time talking about history, you know. My concern is this group this week in preparation for the group that they employ. So that's my focus. I acknowledge the history that you speak of, but it's not a major component of logistical preparation and things of that nature for us as we get ready for this game. It's just not.
Is there anything difficult about playing in Oakland in particular?
Not from my perspective, no.
When West Coast teams travel east, they often fly on Friday. Will you go on Friday or Saturday?
We will not.
And is there any particular reason why it just makes more sense to go on?
Well, yeah, West Coast teams lose time going, and we gain time going. I hate to be that simplistic, but you asked me, so I answered.
Your candidate couldn't have gone back out there. Who was your long snapper?
We had a plan. I'll hold on to those cards.
Mike, are you satisfied with your offensive pass-to-run ratio, and will that be at all effective without having James Conner?
I'm not concerned about it. Like I've often said in here, we're going to be thoughtful in what we choose to do. We better be able to do all things well. Sometimes we're going to be run heavy. Sometimes we're going to be pass heavy. At the end of the day, we better be a group that's capable of attacking in both and provide that type of a balance, if you can call it balance. And I'm comfortable that we're still working in that trajectory.
Mike, would you like to see replay expanded so they could look at more plays?
It depends on when you ask me, you know. Largely no, because I understand that we're in the sport entertainment business, and I understand time is an element of this. And the expansion of replay is not an entertaining element of viewing a football game, and so it's always that component of it.
How about if you just kept the number of challenges, but you could look at...
And we can get into a bunch of hypotheticals, and I'm going to choose to not join you in that regard.
Has the organization received any calls from the league about any of the activities from Sunday night?
I'm not outlining that. I know oftentimes you do, and you know, in an effort to seek comfort, but we're not seeking comfort. We're going to dwell in this misery that we're in and get ready for our next opportunity. If we have any communication with those guys regarding what happened in that stadium, it will remain between us and them.
The down judge in your game had already been subbed out this year. He'd had somebody else come in for him. How do you feel about that process in general?
Not my bag. I got enough issues working with this group. That's between Al and company in New York, and I'm sure they're addressing it in some form or fashion.
Mike, this is the one-year anniversary of Ryan getting injured last year. What does it mean to you to see him walking around, being involved with the team in the way that he is?
You know, Ryan is a special guy. I don't know if I can give what we witnessed just due by, talking about it. I think to be around him every day, to witness it, is a special thing. He's a special guy. He inspires us. He continues to inspire us. And I just appreciate that he allows us to be as close as we are to his journey. His journey is ongoing. So we're going to continue to support him and continue to learn from him.
Anyone else? Coach, we got 3 AFC games in a row. Of course, the Broncos, the Chargers, and then the Raiders coming up. There could be some playoff implications, some tiebreakers down the road. 2 of those last 3 games have been losses. You're going on the West Coast. Can you talk about some of the preparation from a coaching standpoint to not just the players physically, but also mentally, so that they can rebound in that way?
Yeah. And we addressed this briefly yesterday, and really it's a short conversation, but a necessary one. Based on our positioning, there's no need to look around. We got a game to play this weekend. We need to be singularly professionally focused on that opportunity. We win that game, there's no need for us to look around. So that's where we are. We understand what time of year it is. We understand all of those components, but we also understand where we are. And where we are dictates that we need to be singularly focused on this opportunity and really nothing else. All the rest is just, chit-chat.
Mike, what does it take for a team to start to peak in December?
Winning games, and playing winning football. And doesn't necessarily mean perfect football, but you got to do enough to get out of stadiums. So that's our charge this week. We got to do enough to get out of this stadium, and we understand that.
Anyone else? All right.
Thank you, guys.